All right, so in lesson 5, we're now going to look at how we get intersections to be detected in our game, which as you all know, is a big part of game design. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to determine when two images actually collide. And then what we'll do in the next video is we'll see how we can use additional rectangles to actually make our collisions more accurate. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to log onto my classroom website, and you're going to download 2 pictures for lesson 5. You should have a picture of an asteroid as well as a picture of a rocket. So you're going to download both of those pictures. You're then going to create a game in Mono Game called Unit 5, Lesson 5, Intersection. And then you're going to load both of those pictures in and then make sure that you change their property from do not copy to copy always. So I'd like you to pause the video, do that for me, then come back and we'll walk through the rest of the lesson. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to program the asteroid and the rocket to be in our game and to move around in our game so that there's some variation to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a texture 2D object for asteroid, and then we're going to create a rectangle for the asteroid, and then same thing for the rocket. So we've created, basically, this is the picture of your asteroid. There's your rectangle for your asteroid, etc., etc. So you should be adding in your comments so you know what's going on. Now we've got these added in. Picture of our rocket and picture of our asteroid. So what we need to do next is we need to go down into our initialize section and we need to initialize these 2 into our program. So I've added those in. I'm now going to initialize these 2 into our program. So my asteroid has a location of 100, 100 with a height and width of 100, 100. So that one's pretty easy. So I have asteroid rect, and that's going to be a new rectangle with parameters of 100 for the X and Y location, the width, and the height. Then I'm also going to have my rocket rectangle. That's also going to be a newly created rectangle with parameters, and I can see from here that it's at location 600, 100 with dimensions 200, 100. So from here, I now have these initialized in my program, and then I need to go and I need to load in those pictures as well. So I'm going to load in my asteroid. That's this dot content dot load. It's a texture 2D object, and it has the name of asteroid.png. Do the same thing for my rocket. Finder. And then I need to make sure that that text matches exactly. All right, then I want to make sure that they both draw to the screen. So let's go down to the draw section. Sprite dash dot begin. Sprite dash dot end. Sprite dash dot draw for my asteroid. So I have asteroid as my picture, asteroid rect as my rectangle, and then I'm going to just do color dot. Okay, so I'll need to make sure that these work in general. All right, we're good to go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to program the rocket to move. So we're going to go up into our update section. We're going to use the keyboard here. So I'm going to create a keyboard state object called KB, and that's going to use the keyboard class dot state. And then I'm going to say, okay, if KB.is key down, I'm looking at the W key. If that's equal to true, then I want my y location. So I want my rocket rect.y to decrease, because that will make my picture go up. And then I'm going to copy and paste this code. So I'm going to use S is going to make it increase. A will make X decrease. And D will make X increase. So now I've programmed this to where I can move my rocket. It can get closer and closer and closer and closer to my rectangle. Now what you will notice is because the rocket was drawn second, the rocket gets drawn over the asteroid. That should make sense because they're drawn in the order that you give them instruction to draw. So here you can see that the rocket goes right over the asteroid. So we're going to stop our program, and the next thing we're going to talk about is something called the intersection method. So essentially what we have is we can essentially make things happen when our two images intersect. So what we're going to do is we're going to program the background of our images to change when those two images intersect. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to change our program a little bit to prepare for the intersection. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick and we're going to create a color called background color picture. I'm going to create, I know that's a long name, but I'm going to create a color, and to start off, this color is going to be equal to color dot white. So what I'm going to do is if the background, or if the two pictures are intersecting, I'm going to change the background color of those pictures. What I need to do next is go down into draw, and instead of writing color dot white here, I'm going to say change to whatever background color pick says you should be, whether it's red or white. And here, same thing, I'm going to change the color from color dot white to whatever background color pick says we should be. So we're going to then change this value depending on if the two pictures are intersecting or not. So there's a piece of code, and I know my pieces got a little off, but hopefully you can still figure them out. So we essentially have this method called intersects, and what it does is it uses the name of a rectangle, and you can have these rectangles in any order, and essentially what it does is it says rectangle name 1, go to its intersect method and see if it's intersecting rectangle name 2. So what it looks for is whether or not two rectangles are intersecting. So what we're going to program our program to do is if the two pictures are intersecting, so if rectangle 1, or if the rocket rect is intersecting the asteroid rectangle, we're going to change those background colors to be red. And if they're not intersecting, they're going to be white. So if we go here into our program underneath our keyboard code, we're going to add this in, and we're going to say, okay, if rocket rect, we're going to look at its intersects method, and if it's intersecting asteroid, if that's happening, so that means that will return true. So if it returns true and says, yes, it is intersecting asteroid rectangle, that is happening, they are coming into contact with each other, then what we're going to do is we're going to change background color pick to be equal to color dot red. And then what we're going to say is, okay, if they're intersecting, yes, that background color changes to red. If anything else is happening, that background color should always be equal to color dot white. So what this line of code says here is check the rocket rectangle. If it is intersecting with the asteroid rectangle, if that is true, change their background colors to red. If they aren't intersecting, keep their background colors white. So now our game will actually respond. So you'll notice their background colors are currently white and moving closer and closer and closer and closer. I'm not quite there yet, but when they intersect, they both turn red. Now if I move apart, they're no longer intersecting, they turn white. They intersect, they turn red. So now you've got your basic idea of intersections down. What we will do in the next video is we will try and see if we can fix this issue right here, where I'm not quite intersecting, but because their rectangles are intersecting, their backgrounds are still red. So we're going to try fixing that in the next video, but hopefully you now have a basic understanding of how intersections